As they say in Los Angeles, listamos chicos. So today we will address the issue of faith, ethics, and nursing, and I will give you little bits and pieces that you can use, I do hope. It is customary these days in nursing to begin with a statement on your positionality or what it is that makes you who you are, and as you can see, I am an American, and lo siento muchísimo. And I went to a diploma program, 3-year program, hospital-based program, and I graduated in 1969. I worked as a nurse and then as a clinical nurse specialist, then a nurse educator. I'm a theologian and a social ethicist. I am a Presbyterian minister, and I recently retired. However, I am seriously failing retirement. So I decided to return to the tradition of my mother and grandmother and the women in my family for well over 200 years. And I wanted to return to the field of quilting. This is a quilt block, and it's called Log Cabin or Raising the Roof. And in the center, you see it's red. And that represents the hearth or the center of the home. And this particular design has dark on one side and light on the other, and it depends on what dresses your mother or grandmother made, where they had scraps that they would put together for these blocks. Now, these blocks can be arranged, they can be made with different colors, and they can be arranged wrong way. There we go. All right, this is the same block I just showed you. And it's arranged with different colors and in different rotations and in different directions, but it's one block. It's the same block throughout. So that what we're seeing here is that we have infinite combinations and infinite designs from one block. What I want to do is give you 5 blocks of faith, ethics, and nursing for your own quilt. So the first block will be the religious origins of bioethics. The second block is a fresh view of creation and human need. And the third block is the relational nature of nursing ethics. And I'm talking about nursing ethics. I'm not talking about bioethics. I'm talking about the native nursing ethics that arose within nursing between the 1860s and the 1960s, before there was a bioethics. The next block then is the notion of the the block 3 is the relational nature of nursing ethics. 4 is covenant and the nurse to society relationship. And the 5th block is nursing as an individual calling and profession. Okay, so block 1. Come on, there we go. Block 1 talks about the religious origin of bioethics. Now, ethical questions with regard to healthcare didn't arise originally with philosophers and didn't arise originally with theologians, didn't arise with pastors. Ethical questions arose with normal people, not those of us who have too much schooling. And the questions that they would ask came out of their lives, and they would ask questions that were not artificially contrived cases that you see philosophers making in order to make a theoretical or pedagogical point. Instead, these were cases that were real life cases. So they would say, "Rabbi, my loved one is dying. May I pray for him that God will keep him from dying?" Or maybe perhaps instead the person would ask, "May I pray that God will hasten my loved one's death?" Now, let me show you a passage, a bioethics passage from the 1500s, and this is the rabbinic decision on the end of life and what's permissible. This is 2 slides that we'll have to read. And so it says this: One in a dying condition is considered a living being in all respects. We may not tie up his jaws, nor may we anoint him with oil as if he were dead, nor wash him, nor stop off his organs of the extremities, nor may we remove the pillow from under him, nor may we place on him a sand or put him on the clay ground earth, nor may we place on his stomach a dish, a shovel, a flask of water, a globule of salt, nor may we summon the town on his behalf, nor may we hire pipers and lamenting women, nor may we close his eyes before his soul departs. And whosoever closes the eyes of the dying person before death is regarded as one who sheds blood. One may not rend garments, nor bear the shoulder in mourning, nor make a lamentation for him, nor bring a coffin into the house in his presence before he dies, nor may we begin the recital of the Ziduk Chadin, the prayer for the dead, before his soul departs. This is, I think, a wonderful passage. It says that we must treat a dying person as if they are living. And we may not treat them as dead. We may not make them uncomfortable when they are dying. We may not hasten their dying, nor may we impede their dying. Now, there are older examples. My favorite example comes from the first century. It's an example of a famous rabbi called Rabbi Judah the Prince, or Rabbi Judah Hanasi. And he has a very, very miserable, terminal gastrointestinal illness, probably something like ulcerative colitis, and he is dying. And his students and the rabbis gather around him, and they're praying that God would keep him alive. And their prayers are efficacious, and he is kept alive in a suffering condition. The housekeeper sees this, goes up to the roof, and remember the houses had an opening in the center. She goes up to the roof, takes a clay pot, and throws it down in the midst of the rabbi. It shatters, and they're startled, and they cease to pray. And the soul of Rabbi Judah the Prince departs. She was the smart one. Now, clergy and theologians were the first to initiate and develop the field of bioethics, and seminaries and religious schools provided the ethics education. It was the only place where you could get ethics related to life, death, and health. Paul Ramsey in the United States in 1970 wrote a book called The Patient as Person. And he is credited with actually initiating the field of bioethics. He's a minister and a theologian. And in 1980, before bioethics even coalesces, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith of the Roman Catholic Church puts out a declaration on euthanasia. So the religious communities are ahead of the field of bioethics. After theology launches bioethics, philosophy moves in and takes over and brings with it a rationalist, decisional, problem-focused ethics, not a relational ethics. And the field secularizes. But in the secularization of bioethics, it loses a lot. It loses concepts of hope, concepts of meaning, concepts of suffering. All of these are lost, and philosophy is ill-equipped to address them. Those are the domains of the faith traditions. So the implications of Quilt Block 1 are that ethics in healthcare is the province of our faith, and that as persons of faith, we have much to bring to the table, and we must. We need to reclaim ethics in healthcare. The second block is a different view of creation and human need. This is a way to reorient our thinking that I think is in harmony with nursing. In the biblical creation story, God creates the heavens and the earth and the water and the sun and the moons and beaches and sunburn. and God creates creepy crawly things and flying things and slithering things and slimy things. And then God creates carrots and aubergine and zanahorias. And we have creation. And we have creation fully functional. It's self-sustaining. It runs on its own. It does not need humankind. But then God creates humanity, much to the detriment of creation, but God creates humanity. Now, what this means is that in the traditional interpretation, it's understood that humankind is the pinnacle of creation. But in actual fact, if creation is self-sustaining and working on its own and fully complete before humankind, and creation doesn't need humankind, and humankind needs creation, what that means is that humankind is the neediest portion of creation. So, not the pinnacle, but the neediest portion of creation. So humans are created with a God-intended blessed needfulness. We are created with a blessed needfulness. We are created with need, and this is good. And it is a need for relationship, a need for one another, a need for creation, a need for God. So we are created as embodied beings who are interdependent, who are socially constituted, who are creationally situated, and that is a good thing, all of that. But then there's a second kind of need, and this second kind of need that we have is wrought of human disobedience and sinfulness, and it is a wretched neediness. And wretched neediness is different. Blessed needfulness is holy and sacred. Wretched neediness is what we as humanity create, and it issues into illness, death, despair, depravity, warfare, pollution. All of those things are a consequence of sin. So the implications of this are that there can be no human health without creation health, because we are dependent upon creation. Creation doesn't need us. The next implication is really a question. It is, what would happen if nursing invested its research energies into the two kinds of human need and separated them and focused on human need as blessed needfulness, developing interventions that support the nature of blessed needfulness, separate from disease-based medical concerns of wretched neediness? I think these elements of blessed needfulness are, in fact, at the heart of nursing research and should be at the heart of nursing research. And what if we understood health as shalom? Now, let me give you a definition of shalom. Shalom is usually mistranslated as peace. Shalom is one of the most significant theological terms in Scripture, having a wide semantic range, stressing various nuances of its basic meaning: totality or completeness. What if we nurses researched notions of totality and completeness and asked questions like, what does it mean to have totality and completeness when you are dying? It also means fulfillment, completion, maturity, soundness, wholeness, individual and communal. That's the glorious thing about shalom. It's never solely individual, it's individual and communal. And community, harmony, tranquility, security, well-being, welfare, friendship, agreement, success, and prosperity. These are the things that we need to research. So what if nursing more intentionally explored human blessedness, human blessed needfulness in terms of shalom, totality, completeness, spirituality, connectedness, harmony, love, well-being, hope, friendship, and community, it would certainly reorient nursing ethics. All right, block 3 is the relational nature of nursing ethics. And I'm talking again about nursing ethics, not bioethics. Nursing ethics from the 1800s, from the start of modern nursing, was organized or structured, specifically structured around 5 relationships. And those relationships were nurse to patient, or originally nurse to family, because nursing took place in the home. So it was not just the individual, it was the individual and family. Nurse to other health professionals, and originally it was physician, nurse to physician. Nurse to self. Early nursing ethics had a heavy emphasis on the nurse's care of self, not specifically for the benefit of giving care and participating in patient care, but specifically because the nurse was viewed as a person of worth and dignity and deserving of self-care. And not only deserving, but it was a duty of self-care. The next relationship was nurse to profession and nursing peers. And the final relationship was nurse to society, or originally it was also called internationalism. All right, so from the 1860s forward, nursing ethics is relational. It is not decisional, not problem-oriented, not conflict-oriented type of ethics. It is relational. You cannot make a moral decision about a patient by sitting in a hall with an ethics committee, never seeing the patient. Can't be done. So nursing ethics is a relational ethics and everyday ethics that works to maintain relationships. And an everyday ethics that maintains relationships is intrinsically a preventive ethics. It's rooted in the moral character of the nurse, the values, virtues, and ideals of the nursing profession, its narrative, its community, and its practices. So the virtues that the nurse expresses and enacts in patient care or in other forms of nursing are not resident within the nurse, not possessions of the nurse, but they are possessions of the nursing community. And because they are possessions of the nursing community, they are standards by which we judge the practice of nurses. So the implications of Block 3 are nursing has to recover its own native ethics, distinct from a medically normative bioethics and its medical concerns. Now, just as an example from my work, I've been working on the history and development of nursing ethics for the past 50 years. And from the US, the UK, and Canadian literature between 1860s and 1965, there are 100 nursing ethics textbooks and editions. There are hundreds of journal articles specifically on ethics, starting in 1889, a first series of 6 articles on ethics in nursing, and each one on one of the relationships. There is mandated ethics curricular requirements that are rather stiff requirements that start in 1915. And also those requirements are found in many countries if you look at the ICN. And in the 1800s, all of those medical surgical books that began to come out in the 1800s, the first chapter was on ethics. The next chapter was on like enemas or ventilation, so we go from ethics to enemas, but the first chapter is on the nature of the person who is a nurse, the moral character of the nurse, and everything else is clinical thereafter. So I have recently put this came out 6 weeks ago, my book, and I've put a lot of my research in the book. If you're interested in it, there's a discount code that they'll let you use. But what I'm trying to say here is that part of the implications of block number 3 is that we need the history and development of nursing ethics recorded for all of the nations. You know, America can't be the only one. I want to know what is the history and development of nursing ethics in Spain, in Nigeria, in Nicaragua, whatever country. And I think it's incumbent upon us as nurses to explore this background. And then we have to ask the question, what wisdom might that ethics from our own nation offer us today? Now, block 4 is the block on covenant and the nurse to society relationship, or nursing to society relationship. Here's where I depart from some interpretations of covenant. COVID made it clear that the nurse's relationship with society was not a contractual relationship, it was a covenantal relationship. It is a covenantal relationship. And COVID highlighted that covenantal relationship with society is also a relationship with humanity generally, not just my society. And that the individual nurse, and this is where I would differ with some others, the individual nurse has a covenantal relationship with nursing. Nursing has a covenantal relationship with society. I would assert for several reasons that the nurse does not have a covenantal relationship with the individual patient. It's a covenantal relationship with the profession to be the good nurse, to be the skilled nurse, to be the compassionate nurse, the caring nurse for all those who are our patients. We don't operate as nurses under a social contract. Social contract theory comes from political theory and philosophy, and it traditionally focused on free white male landowners over age 21. And the central concern of contract theory has always been the protection of personal property. That doesn't quite fit nursing. It establishes, however, a minimal basis of social harmony and cohesion, and it is transactional in nature. I pay you, and you do this. And it has coercive force. If you steal my car, plant, tree, flowers from my front yard, I can take action against you. That's a contractual relationship. I don't believe that's the relationship nursing has with society. Nursing's covenant with society is based on the fact that society authorizes a profession of nursing. It says, we have people who are in need. We need a profession that will meet those needs, and that profession is nursing. And then nursing's agreement with society is that we will provide compassionate, skilled nursing care that is inclusive of all humanity and even of creation. And so covenant, as relational, is concerned with the health of society, but it's concerned with the good society and the common good. It is not transactional. It's not a relationship of mutual benefit. It's I give, I may not get in return. And I think that a covenantal relationship is based upon shalom. So the individual nurse's covenant is with nursing, and that covenant is to be a good nurse in both a moral and clinical sense, to embrace, interiorize, and enact the values, virtues, and ideals of nursing, and to be this for all patients to the extent possible. That recognizes, of course, that there's sometimes situations like natural disaster or a care facility that chronically short staffs the nursing. It recognizes that there are times that we are prevented from giving the best care that we can. There we go. Okay, there are some problems, of course, with covenant. If society, or more specifically, if an employer knows the values that nursing holds and that the giving, compassionate, caring values that nursing possesses, it makes nurses subject to exploitation. And we do have to say no to that. There are circumstances, of course, that undermine good nursing, as in natural disaster, but there's also circumstances such as unreasonable demands by an employer. And here I'm talking about a pattern of employer behavior, not episodic things that respond to emergencies. Another problem with covenant is that when a standard can't be met, nurses feel guilty. And we walk away, even though we don't bear responsibility for being unable to meet that standard, we walk away flagellating ourselves and beating up on ourselves because we didn't meet the standard to which we are committed by our very nature and identity as nurses. So we do have a tendency to accept responsibility that is not our own. So failure to give superlative nursing under conditions that will not let you do that is not your responsibility. You can feel badly, but don't feel responsible. Now, the other issue of covenant is a failure of self-care. I see this all the time. Nurses are persons of worth and dignity and should engage in self-care, must engage in self-care, have a duty to engage in self-care, not because it benefits the patient, but because it benefits the nurse. Okay, so the implications of Block 4 are that you need to determine what it means for yourself to be a good nurse, good in both a moral and a skilled sense, and determine what self-care you need to meet those expectations that you have of yourself. And then to ask yourself questions of who are exemplars in your own life or historically who demonstrate these expectations of what it means to be a good nurse. Yes. All right. The next block, we skipped one slide. The next block is nursing as a calling, vocation, or profession. Spiritually, the word calling and vocation mean the same thing. They just come from different languages. Calling from Anglo-Saxon and vocation from vocare, the Latin meaning to call. So the same word. Profession, however, has always connoted a more scientized, secularized, dispassionate, objective type of endeavor. And early modern nursing struggled because they were trying to create a profession for women working outside the home that was paid and was not domestic service, was educated and scientific. And that was a hard thing to do. And so they wanted nursing to be a profession, but at the same time, they wanted the commitments and the values that were connoted by the notion of calling or vocation. And so rather than choosing one or the other, they chose to maintain the tension between them. So it was, throughout that literature, it's nursing as vocation and profession at one and the same time, keeping that tension. Okay, now, nursing is not a calling. Nursing, as the profession of nursing, is not itself a calling. The calling resides within the individual person, not the profession. Okay? So not every person is actually called to nursing. There are people who are in nursing, doing nursing tasks, who are clearly not called to nursing. And you all know that person. We won't name them here. And I think it's part of the educator's task to make certain that persons coming into nursing are screened, that they have a fit with the profession, and that they are, in fact, called to nursing. So every good nurse shares the values, virtues, ideals of the nursing tradition, community, and practice as a part of their own personal interior identity. And every nurse who's called to nursing is also experiences a call within a call. So be nice and I'll give you some candy. Nursing as a calling and a profession has many different shapes and colors, and every nurse is the same, but every nurse is different. And so some are called to be clinicians, some are called to be teachers, some are called to be researchers, some are called to change legislation for healthcare, and that is the call within the calling. But we are all nurses, and we share a certain core block, as it were. Okay, so I believe that God grants those whom God calls to nursing the dispositions and attributes essential to the good nurse. If you are not called to nursing and you're running around doing nursing tasks, you don't have the attributes and dispositions I want in the nurse who cares for me, those I love, and even those I don't like. All right, these dispositions and attributes have to be tutored. That is, they have to be educated, formed, developed, mentored, and practiced. Even if you have those dispositions and attribute, they have to be shaped into a nurse. And this is true for evangelism. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you can do evangelism. It has to be tutored and mentored and shaped into being an evangelist, into being a nurse. All right, so the implications of Block 5 are that we need to reflect upon how you knew that you were called to nursing, how you discerned your call within a call. What is it about nursing that grips you and holds you, even on bad days? And what is your passion for nursing? And how does nursing inform your faith? Usually we ask, how does your faith inform your nursing? But I think it's also important to ask, how does nursing inform your faith? Okay, now, your own quilt. I gave you 5 blocks. Now we have to look at your own quilt. This is a different block. This is not log cabin. This is a rather odd-looking block. It has 18 pieces, and all sorts of different dresses and shirts are put together in this block. Now, I want to show you something about this block. This one block with these same colors, without changing the colors, look at how we arrange it. Now, if you squint, it's easier to see. Just kind of close your eyes a little bit and squint, and you can see there's white lines going through it. I think this is the educator's quilt because we want all our students lined up in rows, you know. All right, but here's another quilt, and if you squint, you can see it has squares, concentric squares around it, and this is the same block, just rotated. And here's another one. And this one you can see there's circles around, stars with crosses in between. And here's another. This is the researcher's one. You can see the center of the quilt is off to the left. It's not even in the center. All right, that's the researcher trying to find the center of nursing. All right. Okay, this is one that makes those stars look like frogs. And this is another, and this is the final arrangement with the borders around it. Now, you take that one square and you change the colors and the rotations, and here's 6 different quilts that are the same quilt, the same block that I just showed you, just different colors and different rotations. We are all different colors. We are all different rotations. So the 5 blocks I've discussed are a few of the blocks I would give you for your quilt, a few blocks of faith, ethics, and nursing. The question is, how shall we assemble these blocks into a quilt? And I would say every quilt is unique, but your own life is the quilt. And the whole of your life is sewn together by the master quilter who keeps it together, who has given you a hand in choosing the bits and pieces and scraps of fabric, the shapes and the colors of who you are to be as a person, as a nurse, and as a Christian, however you choose, and then bring these blocks of the quilt blocks together, all those blocks of your life, and you know that by the hand of the great quilter, you can only be a work of great beauty. Thank you.
Quickly share that question.
Si tienes una pregunta, por favor, compártela. How are they going to share it? Are they going to raise their hand? Are they going to come forward? Are they going to...
We're going to get some assistance here with a microphone.
If you want, raise your hand. Levantad la mano, por favor.
Okay, stand up, please, so
Sí.
he can see you, and
Yes,
bring
por-
the microphone to you.
Sí.
Thank you very much. The question is, in the conversation among many bedside nurses, is the need to go with an individual reimbursement model. Any thoughts?
Did you?
She needs to repeat the question.
Can you repeat the question, please, so it can be translated?
I'm sorry.
Among bedside nurses, there's some express a desire for individual reimbursement model, and I'm just curious as to your thoughts.
Con las enfermeras que son las que están al lado de los enfermos, hay algunas que están buscando que se les pueda reembolsar de forma individual. Entonces, si ella tiene algún pensamiento sobre esto.
And what do you understand by individual reimbursement model?
¿Qué entiendes con ese modelo de reembolsamiento individual?
Similar to a physician reimbursement model.
And that would harken back to the days when we did what was called private duty nursing, where nursing took place in the home.
Y esto podía, antiguamente se usaba el modelo de pedir que una enfermera viniera a la casa y se le pagaba.
And then as hospitals developed, nursing moved into the hospitals with private duty, but there were no staff nurses employed by the hospital.
Y entonces las enfermeras empezaron en las casas de forma privada y después cuando los hospitales empezaron, las enfermeras empezaron a trabajar en los hospitales, pero no eran parte del personal del hospital.
And then it's not until, in the US, it's not until after World War II that hospitals uniformly hire staff nurses and no longer have students giving care in hospitals.
Entonces, esto fue en Estados Unidos, después de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, es cuando los hospitales empezaron a emplear enfermeras y las metieron dentro del personal del hospital.
And I think your question is a complex one because it impinges upon other questions. For example,
Y esta es una pregunta compleja porque creo que va con el tema de otras preguntas. José, quizá tú puedas traducir ahora en un momento para no hacerlo tan largo.
So one question is, why is it that the United States refuses to create a sustainable nursing workforce?
Y quizá la pregunta es por qué en Estados Unidos se resisten a tener una fuerza de trabajo sostenible.
Another question would be, why is it that nurses the cost of nursing is bundled in with the charges for rooms.
Y por qué se han cobrado, por qué tienen que cobrar las enfermeras, tienen que pagar a las enfermeras cuando están en una habitación.
And I don't know,
No, los de español, si podéis conectaros, que os van a interpretar para poder hacer esto más ligero, ¿vale?
and I believe that part of the
Sí,
issue...
ahora están traduciendo. Se ha cortado la... Vale, seguimos esta pregunta y después intentamos. Sorry. I'm trying to make it quicker, but apparently it got cut off for the Spanish speakers.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I think that nurses, part of the problem is a lack of unity among nurses to demand that nurses be treated as they deserve to be treated, commensurate with their education, with salaries, commensurate with their education. And I think that to make individual nurses pay for individual nursing service becomes a change in the very nature of the nursing relationship that would have to be examined from an ethics perspective. But I do
Perdón,
think...
sorry. Entonces, lo que está diciendo es que el pago de una... o sea, todas las enfermeras tienen el mismo nivel, todas las enfermeras tienen un grado igual y se les valora de la misma manera, y el tener enfermeras que sean pagadas privadamente de una manera, eso crea un problema ético que debe tratarse.
I didn't directly answer your question except to say that it's more complicated in terms of trying to answer it. But also there are professions that simply are not paid as they should be. We don't pay nurses properly, and we don't pay early childhood educators properly.
Y estamos intentando, o sea, no he podido contestar tu pregunta directamente, pero lo que sí puedo decir es que no se le paga ni a las enfermeras ni a los profesores de escuela temprana, no se les paga lo que deberían. ¿Podéis probarlo de español si ahora funciona? Porque creo que han hecho algo para que eso funcione.
Can we take another question?
¿Es okay? ¿Ya funciona? Gracias.
Barbara, stand up. Such a weird question. I'm not going to interpret it anymore.
Okay.
They got it. Okay. My voice is on.
Just a quick follow-up from that comment and that discussion. Do you believe that it is part of self-care that nurses retain the right to strike?
You're asking for a personal opinion. I would say yes. I would also say strike should be the last resort. That a strike, diplomatic intervention should take place first, and when they fail and the other side is recalcitrant, then I think we have to use our power. I'm not opposed to nursing power at all.
We have maybe time for one more question. Someone was over here.
There was somebody back there.
There's somebody. Stand up, please.
Hello. My first time to hear your black off in the quilt that you said about the what they call the blessed needfulness and wretched needfulness, and they are separate from each other. But my question is, when you care for a patient or
Yes.
anybody in your loved one, are you gonna care for this patient looking at him on blessed needfulness or wretched needfulness? Because I know
Yeah.
in my mind, we are all now in the fallen, wretched, blessed needfulness. Yes?
Yes, yes. We are going to look at both. But my question is really more a question of what is the nature of nursing? And is the nature of nursing addressing those needs for support within the family, for forgiveness, for all of those things, for hope? Those, I think, are areas, domains of nursing that we are underdeveloped, and that we need to focus on the blessed needfulness, how to communicate with patients, how patients communicate with their family members, how we help patients understand the hope that they have, how we help patients through suffering. All of those things, you find very little in the bioethical literature about suffering. And so there are things that I think we need to develop that we have not attended to. If you look at the nursing literature, it's very difficult to find articles on compassion. What's more important in nursing than compassion? But the number of articles that you find on compassion, maybe a dozen, and of those, not very good. So all I'm saying is we can't neglect the wretched neediness, but the wretched neediness is really the medical domain of medical tasks that are flogged off onto nursing. The question I have is, what if nursing focuses on blessed needfulness, which is the heart of nursing, and attended to the medicalized tasks that belong to medicine, really, and that they shuffle off to nursing?